Hello everybody and welcome to How to Play the Greenskins updated for 2021. Now, if you haven't watched the previous Greenskins guides, then you should probably go watch those first, because this is going to kind of be building off of that and just talking about anything that's changed since I made that guide. Because I don't know if you're aware, but the Greenskins are actually completely reworked and updated about a year ago, so my guide is just a little bit out of date. So this video is to bring it back up to date, at least until they drop another DLC for the Greenskins. So I'm just going to go through the same order that I would when I was making the old guides, and then adding what is missing or what's changed. So if it feels like I'm jumping around, it's probably because I am. But first, the COLONELDAMNEDERS merch store is welcoming its latest arrival, the thickest one, a sensual rendition of Grom the Paunch as Poison Ivy, as drawn by our very own Awesome Jedi. You can pick this up on a t-shirt, hoodie, sticker or mug, as well as the new arrival to the catalogue, socks. All items also come in several colours, so there's sure to be something for you. To celebrate this, the site has undergone some huge changes. There is now one t-shirt and hoodie option per item to keep things simple. All prices have also been set to lower than ever before. On top of this, you can also get 10% off your purchase by using the code SEXYGROM at checkout. This code expires on the 30th of April, so get in there quick to make use of it. So head on over to the link in the description, browse the YouTube merch shelf, or go to teespring.com/stores/ColonelDamneders to get yourself something nice. That's teespring.com/stores/ColonelDamneders. You become a fashion icon and also support the channel. So starting first of all with the campaign and faction information. So Grimgor now has his own named faction, which is Grimgor's Ardboys. Aside from that, it stayed pretty much the same, apart from Orc big bosses can be recruited from all provinces. Skarsnik and Wurzag and their factions have stayed pretty much the same, and we have a brand new faction, the Broken Axe. They start in Massive Orcal and have the climate preferences of Wasteland, Savannah, Mountains and Temperate Island being suitable, Temperate, Frozen, Desert and Jungle being unpleasant, and Ocean, Chaotic Wasteland and Magical Forest being uninhabitable. Their faction mechanic is Grom's Cauldron. It adds a variety of ingredients to the game that you can combine into different recipes to buff Grom and the faction. More ingredients can be discovered by exploring the map, fighting specific unit types, and visiting the travelling merchants. These appear every few turns and provide you with 4 options. Buy an ingredient, let the merchant cook a random recipe, receive a challenge to cook a specific recipe for the merchant, or rob the merchant for scrap and gold. So you can unlock more ingredient slots to allow you to make more complex recipes with more ingredients per dish by completing these specific recipe tasks set by the food merchants. There are 15 recipes to discover either by experimenting or by visiting the merchant, and the more recipes you unlock, the more satisfied Grom becomes, which gains him and the faction even more buffs. There are way too many ingredients to list off here, so I'll just go over them as I'm speaking. On top of this, Grom's faction also gains -1 turn to global recruitment. Grom also has -80 relations with High Elves. The other new faction is the Bone Rattlers, which is the faction that is now led by Azhag. They start off at Red Eye Mountain, and their climate preferences are Wasteland, Savannah, Mountains and Temperate being suitable, Frozen, Desert and Jungle being unpleasant, and Ocean, Chaotic Wasteland, Magical Forest, and Temperate Island being uninhabitable. Their faction effects have +40 relations with Vampire Count and Arcan the Black. They have a 20% bonus to research rate, and a bonus 25% income from sacking. Now the research tree has been completely reworked. It now splits off into 3 branches with several offshoots that cost scrap and gold. In the end, they all lead to the same place though, and this place is pretty much just a bunch of buffs to the army. There aren't as many infrastructure research projects here, since that's kind of not really a thing that the Greenskins focus on. The offshoots that cost scrap and gold upgrade units and also allow upgrading units with scrap. This is a new mechanic that I'll come to in a moment. Now of course they also got the brand new WAR mechanic, which is built up by a new currency called Reputation. This is gained via fighting battles, passive gain from research and by just default, previous WAR successes, and raising settlements. There are 4 tiers of WAR Reputation: Bottom Feeder, Straggler, Mobster, and Warmonger, and all of them except Bottom Feeder provide buffs, whereas Bottom Feeder provides debuffs. Getting to max reputation at 100 allows you to trigger a WAR. You choose a faction to WAR against, and you get the goal to either raise or control their capital settlement by the time the WAR ends in 20 turns. You have to also choose to dedicate the WAR to Gork or Mork, which grants different bonuses. Now to help you in this mission, all armies over a certain amount of units get a WAR army travelling around with them that is attached directly to them and fills with units based on the faction, lord, and area they are recruiting from. Each legendary lord comes with unique units that are more likely to appear in their army. Grimgor is more likely to get Black Orcs, Skarsnik is more likely to get Doom Divers, Wurzag is more likely to get Savage Orcs, Grom is more likely to get Pump Wagons, and Azhag is more likely to get Wyverns. Now, new armies cannot get a WAR, and the unit cap is limited to the unit's number when the WAR is triggered. So if an army starts the WAR with 17 units and then moves up to 20, the WAR army will not fill up to 20 units, it will only fill up to the original 17. Successfully completing the WAR grants you a trophy based on the race you went against and a bonus towards your next one. Failing a WAR, however, gives you a massive reputation penalty, which makes getting to the next one that much harder. Greenskins also have access to the Tribal Confederation, or as I like to call it, the Tribe Leader mechanic. What this means is if you go to battle against another leader of a Greenskin faction and beat them, then you get the choice of confederating them, executing the enemy lord and they will never appear again, or releasing them to improve the relations with the faction. 99% of the time, I would say just go for the confederation because, you know, it's confederation, you get control of all their lands, and the faction will never bother you again. This can be incredibly powerful and is a very good way of rapidly expanding super aggressively. If you choose to just go after the other leaders of the other Greenskin factions, you can take over a massive amount of land in a very short period of time. It also makes it really fun to collect the other Greenskin legendary lords, because you just go and hunt them down, beat them, and then you can recruit them. The other new mechanic is scrap, and this is another new currency that is used for faction mechanics like Grom's Cauldron, upgrading units, and research tech. Now, every single unit can be upgraded with a choice of a couple of ways to upgrade. Some units require research before being upgraded, and again, there are far too many upgrades to list here, so I'll just show as many as I can while I'm talking. So you may be wondering why I'm dragging this part out so much and why I'm just saying some stuff that isn't really relevant to the video. In fact, you could just say I'm trying to fill the time because there are so many scrap upgrades. I mean, if you think about it, 2 for each unit, and there's how many, like 30 units in the game, so that's like 60 upgrades to show, and you know, I can only click so fast and show them on screen for so much time, and I want you to actually be able to see them rather than just them flashing off immediately. You know, if you pause and go frame by frame, then yeah, you can see them, but I think that this way is best so that you can actually see them. Now, scrap is gained via missions, post-battle loot, technology, success in wars, raiding, and raising settlements. Apart from that, it's pretty simple. Now moving on to the new Greenskin army units. First of all, we have the monsters, starting with the river trolls. They have regeneration and are aquatic, which means they can move faster through the water and also regenerate any damage that they take up to a certain cap. They are still keeping the poor leadership, so you definitely want to keep them safe by integrating them in the melee lines to avoid them getting swarmed due to their large hitboxes. Keep them moving out of combat every so often to make the most of that regeneration and let their leadership recover. I'd say taking 2 to 4 of these guys, and of course replace your regular trolls with them as soon as possible because they are just flat out better. Now, stone trolls are next up, and again, very similar to regular trolls, but just are better. They come with armor piercing damage and scaly skin, so do more damage and can take more damage. Other than that, they want to be used pretty much the same way. I would say 2 to 4 of these guys, and again, probably upgrade from river trolls, but between the 2 of these guys, it's really a preference. The final new monster unit is the Rogue Idol. It causes massive armor piercing damage, is great versus infantry, and causes terror. It is quite cumbersome though, so has a very slow attack rate, so even though it hits hard, it doesn't hit often. They're kind of like giants, but actually pretty good since they are insanely tough with armor and resistance and loads of health. They buff the entire army's leadership just by being there, and as they lose different amounts of health, they deal massive damage to all around them, including allies, so sometimes send them into alone can work quite well. I love these guys and absolutely take 2 of them with me into the endgame. Our other new units are 3 variations of the same war machine, the Snotling Pump Wagons. The base unit is armor piercing and anti-infantry, but it's also expendable. They kind of work like pseudo chariots, so you know, I'm not exactly an expert using them, but I'll do my best. Do not let them get stuck in melee because their stats are absolute ass. You want to keep them rolling in and out of the enemy, making the most of that charge bonus. They don't have the most speed in the world, but they definitely hit hard. I would say taking 2 to 4 of these guys, depending on your level of micromanagement confidence, will do a lot of damage. The first variation are the Flappers. These guys have even more charge bonus, so you really do want to keep them moving and charging at all times. Other than that, they're pretty similar. And the final variation is the Spiky Rollers. These guys have less charge bonus, but do have more AP damage, so you really want to focus these guys on the armored targets on the enemy lines. They also are pretty much unstoppable, so have massive knockback. So if you have some enemies that have a little bit of charge bonus and you're having trouble moving them around the battlefield, then send these guys in and they're sure to do well. They also come with armor sundering attacks, meaning anything they attack will have their armor reduced, which means that damage is going to hit just that much harder. I would say taking 2 to 4 of either the Spiky Rollers or the Flappers, or even 2 of each would be very good. Again, this one kind of depends on your preference. Finally, we come to the new Regiments of Renown. First of all, we have the Swamp Things, which are a River Trolls unit. They lose 1 melee attack, but gain the ability to cause terror. Logie Bogie's Spore Sploders are a Snotling Pump Wagons unit and gain the Giant Exploding Spores ability. And finally, Debigan is the Rogue Idol Regiment of Renown and becomes a ranged unit that launches pieces of itself at the enemy. It can cause damage to itself to create more ammo, so in theory, until it dies, can fire forever. Now, these new units do actually change my ideal endgame composition for the Greenskins, and also, you know, it's a good excuse to show off the Greenskins in battle. So we're keeping these 6 Black Orcs because they really just are the best Orcish front line, if you ask me. We're switching it up for 4 Fanatic Night Goblin Archers, so we've got that Spinning Loons ability and also some ranged and poison damage. Still taking those 2 Arachnarok Spiders because going against large units, there is nothing better on the roster. We're also taking 2 Rogue Idols because frick Giants, don't know why I ever thought they were good. Rogue Idols, all the way, definitely much better. Don't take Giants ever. I'm also being brave here and taking 2 Spiky Roller Pump Wagons because I need to get better at micromanagement, and these guys are seriously good. Taking 2 Doom Divers because that artillery is too damn good with those guided projectiles and armor piercing damage. Of course, I'm leading with an Orc War Boss because I want my Lord to be the best fighter, and of course, I'm taking an Orc Shaman because the Lore of the Big War is the best one, no matter what units they add. Now, to see how the sound performs, I'll pass you over to live commentary, Miles. Take it away. Thanks a lot, Miles. So, here we are at Doc Karaz. I chose to go against Elfarin because, you know, it's kind of the guy that got added opposite Grom the Paunch, and of course, instead of using a generic Lord, I chose to lead my army with the beautiful Grom the Paunch, which actually probably turned out to be a bad idea because, you know, he's technically a chariot unit and I'm not too good at using those. So, I have deployed with my arch units up front. Now these guys, because they have Vanguard deployments, they can deploy here, and because they have Stalk, they are technically invisible, so they're not going to get shot to pieces by the enemy artillery. I'm of course focusing my artillery on the key enemy targets in just a second here. So I'm going to be focusing on the Sisters of Avalon, Regiments of Renown, because goddamn they're scary, some Sword Masters of Hoeth, and then some other Sword Masters of Hoeth. The Biggin Rogue Idol, I'm also using some Regiments of Renown, because, you know, when you can, you do. He's obviously going to be throwing his rocks throughout this entire battle, and oh my god, they do so much bloody damage. He's basically like the Greenskin version of a Cygor, and I never thought I'd be so happy to say that the Beastmen actually have something good, and that the Greenskins have kind of copied it. So just moving my units up here, choosing to meet them aggressively rather than waiting for them to come to me, since they do have a lot of ranged units and I will be quickly outranged. Now they managed to move up just into the range of my Night Goblin Archer Fanatics, so they're now getting shot to pieces. Of course, these guys don't do the most damage, none of the ranged infantry units of the Greenskins really do, but they do poison damage and, you know, it chips away at them. I'm mostly taking these guys for the Fanatics spinning loons ability, which we'll come to see in just a little bit. I'm also, of course, moving in the Lava Arachnarok Spider. That is going to be taking on the War Lines of Krace. And on the middle here, we got the Rogue Idol, of course, going into all this infantry, and the Orc Shaman is also going to be assisting with some spells. See, Elfarin has engaged with my Black Orcs, so they're definitely going to need some support, and we're just getting shot to bloody pieces on this flank. I did actually move them here to protect against the Silver Helms, and of course, the Rahagra's Pride, the War Lines of Krace. But it turns out that they just kind of waited for me to get shot to pieces, which was actually a pretty smart move from them, so, you know, can't really get mad about it. Now moving in my Night Goblin Archer Fanatics to use those spinning loons, which we'll just see here. There we go, right to the side of that Phoenix Guard. He might be hitting my own units just a little bit, but they are doing quite a tasty bit of damage there. Up to 21 kills. Good job, lads. I have tried to move around with my Snotling Pump Wagons and, of course, Grom the Paunch into the enemy back lines. Of course, I'm not the best at using chariots, so these guys don't get the best use. But nevertheless, they are targeting the enemy ranged units and shutting most of their ranged infantry down fairly quickly, which is exactly what I wanted them to do. Now see that the enemy Silver Helms and the War Lines of Krace have moved in on my Lava Arachnarok Spider, which is just fine. This thing does bunches of damage. It does anti-large damage. It should be just fine against these guys. Look, it's not even losing any health, barely. That's all going very well there. The middle skirmish is getting a little bit messy. Elfarin has reinforced this line. It's making it very hard for me to shut it down because he just provides so much freaking defensive leaderships and buffs when he's there. And of course, Grom is just kind of doing stuff in the back. The Rogue Idol kind of stuck around because, you know, I'm bad at managing, but oh well. It's still got 34 kills so far. On the left flank and the right flank, actually, we've won, so the Black Orcs are now moving up, which unfortunately is leaving the Night Goblin Archers a little bit exposed to these Silver Helms. But when I have 1, 2, 3 units stood right here, they can support them with some ranged fire. And of course, I pop the wire there just to get some nice buffs for the entire army. I'm also focusing my Doomdive catapults on these guys because, you know, they do a lot of damage. These things have a little bit of armor, so it makes sense to try and focus them down as quickly as possible, especially when they are threatening my units. I believe I'm trying to move Grom into a position where he can get in and take on Elfarin in a one-on-one, because right now what he's doing is it's not too fun. He's really screwing up my front lines over here, especially when he's being backed up by the Arcane Phoenix and the Phoenix Guard, which are thankfully finally broken, and at 301 health they are not very likely to come back. I'm now trying to focus some of his large units, such as the Sun Dragon and the Phoenixes, down with my archers, whilst also bringing in a bunch of units like the Arachnarok Spider, Grom, the Chariots, the Black Orcs, literally anything to shut these guys down because they have very dangerous units. We have 2 units of Black Orcs taking on the Swordmaster of Hoeth, but there's barely any of them left, so they should be cleaned up very, very quickly indeed. Silver Helm's moving around, but they're getting shot to pieces by pretty much everything I have, so they're not going to last very long at all. The Arcane Phoenix has decided to engage with the Biggin, which probably not the best idea, since, you know, the Biggin has 15,000 health, and this thing has under 4. Yeah, it's probably not going to work out too much, and he's running, especially now getting shot to pieces by all of those Night Goblin Archer Fanatics. This thing doesn't have much armor, so yeah, it's definitely going to feel the burn of that. I finally get Grom into fight Elfarin, but at this stage, after he's been beaten around in the enemy backlines, he is very low on health, and he will instantly break. But not to worry, the fight will still go on. we were fighting Grom's honor, even though he has completely abandoned us. The Lara Ragnarok Spider kind of just stood around. I really should have brought it in to help with the main fight more and just kind of let the big gun deal with any enemy flanks. But, you know, you learn these things when you're playing, and it's important to show them mistakes so that you know not to make them. And there we go. We managed to get army losses because pretty much everything is taken out on their side. And yeah, it's another classic Colonel Damneders, you know. It's pretty poorly managed, but we get the victory in the end. And I think it's best to show you the battle, like not a perfect battle, like one of my actual battles I would actually do without being, you know, really in the zone and warmed up, because it's important to show you mistakes so that you know not to do them. So yes, let's just have a quick look at the stats. And here we are. So, our leader, Grom the Paunch, he did 4,000 damage, and that is 1,000 damage value with 35 kills. So he was charging into the backs. You didn't really see it, but he was charging into the backs of the Sisters of Avalon, the Shadow Warriors, and pretty much any enemy range units he could get his hands on. The Orc Shaman, of course, doing 10,000 damage, and all of that was on the front lines with some massive foots of Gorks and Brainbusters, a bunch of high damage spells just in massive blobs of enemies. You can't go wrong with an Orc Shaman. It is the best lore of magic for the Greenskins, without a doubt. Now, something interesting for the Black Orcs, you know, normally I say for melee infantry, it doesn't really get much value. It's just kind of there to soak up the enemy and let your other units do value. But look, 59, 40, 50, 40, 36, and 70 kills on the Regiments of Renown. Yes, the damage value isn't too high. Apart from those guys, 1,200. Goddamn, what the hell were they fighting? But it's still a lot of damage for ranged infantry to get. We're kind of seeing a reversal here because the arch units haven't really got too many kills, but they are still doing plenty of damage. You know, they are poison. They are more of a support infantry than they are a actual damage dealing ranged infantry. Nevertheless, even with only 9 kills, they've done 5,800 damage and 1,000 damage value there, 700 there, 1,100 there, and 1,277 there. That is a excellent amounts of damage, especially with those spinning loons. That's exactly why I brought them. The enemy clumps will be sending the spinning loons, and they get so much value. The Ragnarok Spider that was in against all of the enemy front line, 5,400 damage and 1,000 damage value there. Very, very nice. The Rogue Idol in the middle of all that ranged, no, not ranged infantry, melee infantry, got 5,800 damage and 1,450 damage value. He was going against those Phoenix Guard, the Swordmaster of Hoth, so him was just spinning around, slamming around, and doing bunches of damage. Lara Ragnarok Spider, as I said, I could have probably used it better, but still, it was going against high value targets, and it definitely protected that flank. So 1,378 damage value there. I'm pretty pleased with that. Now, the Big Un was using its ranged attacks for the entire battle, pretty much. I mean, it got charged by the Arcane Phoenix towards the end there, but pretty much all the work it did was from a range and was probably targeting those Swordmaster of Hoth. So, you know, 5,500 damage, but only 800 damage value because, you know, Swordmaster of Hoth, they're a great unit, don't get me wrong, but when you're only targeting a couple of those guys, yeah, your damage value is not going to be too high. Oh, the tragic tale of my chariots. I'm really terrible at them. I really need the practice, but this is why I'm putting them in the army, so that I can get the practice, and that I can show you me getting the practice, so that you know, I'm not good. And you should take my advice with a massive grain of salt. But yes, 3,000 damage there with 10 kills. That's not too atrocious. You know, they were hitting those enemy backlines. So that's why they have, you know, such high damage value, even though their damage is relatively low. Pretty pleased with that. Doom Diver Catapults, 10,000 damage. I love these things. 1,600 damage value. You can never go wrong with a Doom Diver Catapult. They are absolutely beautiful. Guided projectiles, armor piercing damage. They're just fantastic. And 69 nice kills there with 5,800 damage and 1,200 damage value. So yes, on the whole, things I could have improved on. Grom and just the chariot use in general was a little bit wonky because, you know, I'm not very good at chariots. I'm not very good with the old micro. Could have probably used the Orc Shaman a little bit better, moved him around the battlefield, got a few more casts off because I think I just did that big foot of Gork and then just kind of forgot about him. Probably could have got the Big Un into some melee combat as well as him obviously doing that fantastic ranged firing. The Lava Ragnarok Spider probably should have got him more into the middle. So yeah, I just need to focus my units more on just really work on that micromanagement because, you know, I'm kind of bad. But yes, that's all from me, so I'll pass you over to Miles for the Lords and Heroes. Thanks for that, Miles. Now we'll wrap up by going over any new Lords and Heroes. Of course, we have the new Grom the Paunch, who leads the Broken Axe faction.
The biggest, meanest gobbo ever!
For his Lord effects, he grants plus 10 leadership when fighting men to his army, 10% physical resist for goblins, and minus 50% upkeep for chariot and pump wagon units. His starting units are spiky roller pump wagons, river trolls, and stone trolls. In battle, he is armoured and deals anti-infantry damage, and is of course always on top of his wolf chariot that he can never dismount. He also has regeneration due to eating some troll meat, which is a little bit gross, so you want to use him alongside your pump wagons and keep him charging in and out of the enemy. He is not good once he gets pinned down. He's a little bit better than the snotling pump wagons, but if he gets surrounded, he will be taken out just as easily. He has no spells, but does have the ability Language of the Boys, and a great one is here. When leveling him, you want to start in the blue tree, picking up the income boosters for raiding, sacking, and looting. You then want to get Lightning Strike, Mob Boss for upkeep reduction, and then Renowned and Feared because it has loads of good bonuses. His Great Immensity tree has loads of bonuses and is unique to him, so that's always worth picking up. Goblin Tide is great for his army style, and of course the Red Tree for upgrading his core units. He also has access to a couple of missions. The first is the Real Axe of Grom. This is a battle versus another Greenskin army that gets some minor reinforcements from the right side of the map. You need a decent mid-game army to take them on, and just be sure to focus fire their large units and use your fast lads to take out their ranged, and you should be just fine. The weapon gained gives him a lot more damage, as well as an ability for even more damage and some growth for the campaign. His other mission is the final siege of Tor Ivres. It's the final battle in the Grom Vortex campaign, and it's an assault against the city of Tor Ivres. It's being defended by the City Watch and of course Elfire and the Grim as reinforcements, but you also get 2 sets of reinforcements to help you out, so it's not too bad. As Warhammer 2 sieges go, it's actually pretty big, with the central keep being quite far into the city. It can take you quite a while to get in, and with the towers firing on you, it can be quite a lot of pressure. You will of course be taking your endgame army, since this is an endgame battle, and of course it doesn't get you anything in return but a victory condition. As for the new heroes, we have the Black Orc Big Boss. On the campaign map, these guys spread public order and, as with all heroes, discover undercities. They can assault garrisons, wound enemy characters, and assault enemy units. And when embedded in an army, they provide training. On the battlefield, these guys are armoured and shielded, and are basically your one-man tank army that you just want to send in to blob up a load of enemies for your spells. They can take a lot of damage, but also deal a lot of damage, so just don't be afraid to send them anywhere you want. They have no spells, but can get the Warball mount, and have the abilities Rabble Rouse, Get Back Here, and Heroic Killing Blow. When leveling them, you want to pick up training, and then head into the Dead Ard tree for all the combat bonuses that you could ever need. Also get back on your feet, Boss of the Field, and Armed to the Teeth. You want to of course pick up the Warball mount, the rest of the top row bonuses, and of course, Immortality. Our other new hero type is the Giant River Troll Hag. On the campaign map, these guys spread public order, they can steal technology, wound enemy characters, and assault enemy units. And when embedded in an army, they provide replenishment. On the battlefield, these are spellcasters, but can also be sent into battle since they are essentially river trolls. They have slimy shanks and regeneration, so can take a lot of damage but also deal quite a bit. They have no mounts but do have access to the Law of Death, which they should use to rain hell down on the enemy as much as possible. They also have the abilities Life Leeching, Swamp Breath, and Mither. When leveling them up, you of course want to grab all the spells that you possibly can, then replenish the troops. The Horde Mass line for generally being better in battle, and of course the top row is always full of good stuff, and you know, Immortality. And that concludes this video on how to play the Greenskins in 2021. If you like this video at any point, then be sure to leave it a like and share it with anyone else that you think might like it. If you want to see more content like this on Warhammer and strategy related content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. It is free and it just ensures that every single video that I put out, you see it first. Thank you to everyone that's supporting the channel, and some special thanks to Nifty Norm and Kobe Said So for their outstanding levels of support at the Unclean Ones tier. If you'd like to get on this end screen, then you can support the channel on Twitch, Patreon, or even right here on YouTube, and all the details are in the description. One more thank you for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.